You have emotional trauma, so just you need to get over it.
I think that's a good idea.
That's what they said.
Anytime I tell someone to just stop it,
Just
That
knock it
works.
off.
Just don't do that
It's like telling
anymore.
someone to calm down. Works every time. This is Shit Therapists Say, and we're gonna break it down. Mended light. In this segment, we talk about bad advice that our fans have gotten from their therapists. And somebody actually wrote in that a therapist told them, you have emotional trauma. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at the emotional trauma. I'm laughing at the idea that the therapist actually said that you just need to get over it. Not great.
yeah, I would say that's not a win. Because if getting over it worked, they would have gotten over it.
Yeah, well, and you don't see a specialist for them to tell you to get over it. Like, the specialist is there to give you the how. So first of all, let's talk about what emotional trauma is versus, good old-fashioned garden variety trauma. A lot of
Garden variety trauma.
garden variety trauma, yeah. I don't want to minimize it. That's terrible. I take it back. But in the psychological world, we look at PTSD and we tie it to trauma is related to a physical threat. Right? Acts of violence, abuse, near-death experiences, witnessing the death of somebody else, witnessing something terrible and violent happening to somebody else. And there's a little bit of leeway in my field for emotional abuse to be traumatic. That's kind of where the buck stops, right? At least as far as we disagree. There are lots of things that can be traumatic. And we define trauma not just as you thought your world was safe and then you realize that it's not. Sometimes you're born into trauma. You never had a safe world.
Right.
Trauma is you experience something so distressing that your emotional response to it now interferes with your daily living and your daily functioning, right? Something that causes such a surge of fear, such a surge of anguish, such a surge of loss or sadness or anxiety or stress. And all trauma results in triggers. The reminders of the trauma bring up these intense feelings over and over and over again. And because we don't like to feel that way, we tend to avoid the things that are triggering. So trauma leads to triggers, leads to avoidance, leads to hypervigilance. I'm always on edge. I always think something bad's going to happen again. And I can't really relax and enjoy my life or function the way that I want to. That's trauma. And there are a lot of things that aren't physical threats that can be traumatic. What are some things that come to mind? I think divorce or an intense breakup can be traumatic.
Yeah, well, and we have to recognize that it's our nervous system's response, and it's keeping us safe, right? And it isn't just a single experience, right? It's so often things that feed into each other. It's a domino effect.
Yeah.
And so you might not even you could be consciously aware of what your triggers come from, or you could be completely not consciously aware of what your triggers come from.
You just know you're having unpleasant emotions and you can't figure out why. Or you attach the why to something else that's not the real reason. Yeah. Sorry, did I
No.
steal your thunder? Thunder. So I think divorce, or a breakup of a relationship, I think a loss of a friendship can be traumatic. I think losing a job, losing a career, staying at home because of quarantine and having your whole life upended. Right?
Yeah.
There are lots of things, like the strife that's going on in our society right now, the culture wars, I think actually can lead to a type of trauma and anxiety response. There's lots of things that can be emotional trauma. So the question then becomes, if we can't just get over it, if that's not the solution to just toughen up and do it, what is? How do you work through something like that?
I think you need to first recognize that you've experienced a trauma, right? Because you can't fix something that you won't even recognize that's there.
Yeah.
And then you need to recognize the results of that trauma, like how it's showing up for you. There are similarities between people, but then we all have our very own unique, different experiences. Recognize the way it's manifesting in your life and the coping mechanisms that you have because of it.
Yeah.
And so often we feel harsh self-judgment when it comes to trauma.
We're great with that.
So good. But it's isolating, right? When we judge ourselves and we feel shame and guilt, it's isolating.
Yeah.
Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I grew up in a home and one of my parents had an anger issue,
Yeah.
right? Maybe I didn't experience physically getting hit, but there was a lot of anger. And some people are more sensitive than others. And I have a very sensitive disposition. So someone raising their voice for any reason can be a trigger for me.
Yeah.
And so I learned to survive my childhood by not being seen, right? If I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and then I'm not
Yelled at.
I'm not berated, and I'm not basically told, because in those actions we're told that you're not lovable, you're not worth it, all those things, like you're being rejected.
And my anger is because of you.
Right. And I'm responsible, like I'm the child, and now I'm responsible for the adult's behavior, right?
Yeah.
And so that coping mechanism is what helps you to survive your childhood. And you think, well, it's not that bad. Like, I didn't grow up in a war zone. I wasn't beaten. I wasn't sexually abused. Like,
And if I may really fast, that I think is the biggest hindrance to recognizing that you've experienced a trauma is what I call the Olympics of suffering, right? That, well, I wasn't sexually assaulted, or I wasn't, I didn't have this happen or that happen, or so it can't be a trauma. Like, that's reserved solely for people who've gone through this sort of thing. And the fact is, once again, anything that is distressing enough to cause an intense fear response, anxiety response, anguish response, as well as triggers and avoidance qualifies as a trauma.
so I go through my childhood, my adolescence, being safe by not being seen, by not being heard,
Yeah.
and not being worthy of being seen and heard.
Because if they see me, they're not going to like me.
Right. There's so many different ways like we can take it from there.
Yeah.
But it's not safe to be seen and heard, right?
Right.
And then I go to college, I'm a professional, I'm successful in my career, and yet I can't speak up for myself. Like, I'm in a conference room and I have a differing opinion. It's still not safe for me to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
Or
what's
if I try, I have to lead with, I'm sorry.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The apologetic
I'm so
behaviors.
sorry, but I just have to say, and then, yeah.
And so this can look different for a lot of different people, but that's just one so simple example. And then I internally berate myself. Why can't I speak up? Why can't I have a voice? What's wrong with me? And I can see how it's affecting my career. And instead of stepping out of that place and saying, okay, this was my experience. And with that experience, you don't even need to say, that makes the adult in my home that behaved this way, that makes them a bad person.
Right.
For the most part, there are people who cause horrific abuse and they do it on purpose, and I'm not talking about them. But for the most part, parents love and care about their children and they're doing the best that they can, right? Even if the best that they can is just a continuation of the trauma that they experienced earlier in their life, right?
And the treatment they received. And, this is how we handle, being a parent is overwhelming. And being a parent is hard. At least that's my experience. And I definitely know I have moments as a parent that even though I adore my kids, I'm like, that I need to go undo what I just did. Like, I can see it in my daughter's face that she feels unworthy because I was impatient with her, and I need to go make that right, And that's a universal parenting experience.
Yeah. So getting to this place of recognizing the trauma, recognizing how it affected your life, recognizing that you had coping mechanisms from that trauma that served you during that time. And the biggest challenge with trauma is we often carry those coping mechanisms into other areas of our life. The ones that kept us safe are no longer keeping us safe. They're keeping us stuck.
It's like the monkey bars, right? You have to let go of the rung that got you to where you are so that you can move forward.
And so often all of this is happening in an unconscious level. And so we have to bring that consciousness up. And the challenge with bringing that consciousness up is we've maybe tried to do it in the past, and it is so painful. And we don't know what to do with those painful experiences, so they go right back in the box. They go right back buried into the ground.
Yeah.
The image I see in my mind when one of those experiences comes up for me, it's like I have this beautiful living room, and in the corner is a pile of dirt and manure, and it stinks. And I just keep throwing a pretty Persian rug over that pile of manure, and I'm like, let's just pretend that that's not there and it doesn't stink. But you can't. You
can't cover up the smell.
Yeah. And so that's like...
It's going to seep through, and it's going to seep through like when you have company over or like some inopportune time. Similarly, when you've experienced emotional trauma and you just try and bury it, it's going to come out in times that you don't plan, or times that are inconvenient or even damaging for you in your relationships, it has to be uncovered and dealt with and addressed and cleaned up.
Sometimes we get to the place where we finally recognize it. We finally recognize how it's affecting our lives, and then we get stuck in a place of judgment. And so we have to step out of that place of judgment for ourselves. And we need to show ourselves love, the love that we never received in that experience, right? Whether it was intended abuse or not intended abuse. Like, we felt unloved, unlovable, rejected, unworthy, right?
I think some people hesitate to like engage in self-love because it feels cheap, it feels fake. Like, well, I'm just here loving myself because no one else will love me, and that's really sad, and that means that I'm not really lovable, and I'm just trying to make this work. And the fact is, it's quite the opposite. Self-love is the most reliable type of love, because if you put your trust in other people, they may or may not come through for you in that regard. And the people who were hurtful to you may not be, I don't see them necessarily as a reliable judge of character. We, I think, care far too much about what other people think, as if other people's opinions are somehow far more valid than our own. But everyone's struggling with their own perspectives, struggling with their own baggage, struggling with their own burdens, and that bleeds into their interactions with other people. So just because someone has had a problem with me doesn't mean I'm the problem.
So going back to that place of showing ourselves that love, that worthiness that we never felt, and doing it in small steps. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but just recognizing that that's what's going on for us and finding that place. I've been reading this book called Real Love, and he's got a series of books on real love. And I really love his perspective in that all of us are looking for unconditional love. Like, that is a human need that all of us have. And the pains that we experience in our life, the traumas, if you will, comes from that lack of unconditional love. Or, so we're trying to get love, but so often it's imitation love, which can look like a lot of different things. Or we're trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And the question that I love to ask is, because it just feels like a huge ball of yarn that gets all tangled up and there's tons of knots, and it's like, how do I even undo this? The question I love to ask myself, is this serving me, right? Like, I can see my own behavior patterns. Is this serving me? And going to that place of loving myself for getting through whatever those hard experiences were.
Yeah.
And if it's not serving me, asking myself, like, how can I let go of this and replacing it with something that will serve me? Yeah.
Well, and I think I love that question. Does it serve me? It's similar to a question I do in therapy, not because I don't like to label things as right and wrong. I like to ask, is it working? Right? And I think if we can shift in our mind from kind of a meritocracy view of love, like we love people because
meritocracy.
Yeah, meritocracy is a form of government where you get what you deserve, right? And you get ahead based on your efforts, and if you fall behind, it's based on your lack of effort. And we approach love a lot this way.
So right? Like a quid pro quo, this for that. Yeah, you have to earn your worth, you have to earn your love.
And you have to earn your worth and earn your love, and therefore it's hard to give love, and it's hard to love yourself if you don't feel like you've earned it yet.
Yeah.
But what if we approach others and ourselves with this idea of we all have value, we all have worth that's innate, we're all worthy of love, and that by loving one another and by loving ourselves, we bring out the best. It's not we bring out the best and then we get the love. Yeah. It's the other way around. And so if you feel you haven't earned love, so what? Yeah. Well, and that's not loving yourself, because that's how you're going to get out of the hole.
And that's not the way real love works. You don't earn real love.
Because sometimes our kids don't earn it and we love them anyway. So speaking of coping mechanisms, we have another video, Sex Fixes Everything. That is something that a therapist said.
You're saying it doesn't?
In our relationship, it definitely does.
Whoa.
Like, subscribe, click the bell, share with your friends. How do you work through emotional trauma? How do you get to a place of self-love? We want to hear from you in the comments. What is something terrible that a therapist has said to you, or that somebody, or just bad advice that someone's given you that you'd like us to respond to and completely poke holes in? Let us know in the comments below. If you've been through a trauma, we have a free resource, a free video series that we'd like to send you. Link for that is in the comments below.
And remember to keep shining. We need your light.
And because we're deliverers, I think that's why they call us Dominoes, because we deliver.
What was Dominoes?
I'm starting a thing right now, but here comes the video that we promised. So we're delivering.
I love videos.
Right? Yeah, of course.
Especially of you.
Aw. When I'm gone, do you ever just like watch videos of me?
Maybe I should start